Welcome to The Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. Each week we investigate themes of leadership, entrepreneurship, and mindset with some of the greatest minds in real estate. And now, the data scientist of real estate, George Roberts.
Welcome back, entrepreneurs. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Nick Prefontaine. He is a 3 times best-selling author and was named a top motivational speaker of 2022 in Yahoo Finance. He's a speaker, founder, and CEO of Common Goal, as well as a partner and buyer's coach at Smart Real Estate Coach. In 2003, Nick was in a snowboarding accident that left him in a coma for over 3 weeks. The doctors told his parents that he would probably never walk, talk, or eat on his own again. Less than 3 months later, he was running out of the rehab hospital in Boston. Nick now speaks to groups that benefit from his message of overcoming adversity. And with that, I'd like to welcome you to the show, Nick. How are you doing today?
George, I'm doing outstanding, and I've been looking forward to this interview for quite some time now.
Well, me as well, because I see that you do have an outstanding approach to life. And I think usually that's where we start on these podcasts, is talking about personal history. Usually, though, I usually skip it because it's not as interesting as yours. So why don't you take us through that terrible accident and your mindset, the way you set the goals, and your method, the method that you now help other people apply to overcome adversity?
Sure, I'd love to. So it all goes back to, it was just like any other day. I was at ski club with my friends, and we had all got our snowboard gear on the bus to get ready so we wouldn't miss a precious moment once we got to the mountain. We got to the mountain and headed straight for the top. On the way up, we noticed that it was very icy because it had been raining. So people were wiping out everywhere. And the chairlift actually went right over the terrain park. And there was this jump in the terrain park. As soon as I saw it, I knew, oh, that's what I'm hitting. I'm doing that.
Wow.
Yeah, I was excited. So it wasn't our first go around on snowboards, my friends and I. Got to the top, buckled into my snowboard, took a breath of that crisp winter air, and confidently charged towards that jump with all my speed. Going up to the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard. I was told that I landed on my head.
Wow.
I learned it is something all together. I pieced together like events from that day. So caught the edge of my snowboard, and then that's it. So I don't remember everything, but I pieced together that the only protection that my head had was a pair of goggles. So I wasn't wearing a helmet. However, the goggles I had on, George, were a lot of padding. So they were really thick and acted as a de facto helmet, if you will.
Right.
Because with each impact, my head hit, and then as I kept rolling and hitting my head on the ice, the goggles mysteriously moved to cushion each blow as I rolled down the mountain. The paramedics they actually wanted to life flight me. They wanted to bring a helicopter into the mountain to rush me to the hospital. They couldn't because it was too windy, so they sent in an ambulance. Out of the team of paramedics, all the paramedics in the Worcester County area, there was only one who could intubate right on the spot. And I needed that to be able to breathe because of my accident, the severity of my accident. And lucky for me, he was one of the paramedics that showed up to the mountain that day. Once I got to the hospital, I was resting. Obviously, I was totally out for the count, didn't know what was happening. They said just on the impact alone, I would have been out for 7 or 10 days in their estimation. However, I had such swelling in my brain that they were afraid if I woke up, I would panic and worry, how did I get here? Who are you people? What's going on? And then the swelling in my brain would increase and I would have died. So they had to put me into a coma. So it was an induced coma, partially induced coma. So I was resting in a coma, partially induced coma in the intensive care unit. My parents are there, and the doctors, as all doctors do, they come into the patient's room to share the prognosis with the family. And the doctors started telling my parents the news. And as you can imagine, it's not so good and not so good with each passing hour. They came in, they started talking, and I was fortunate enough because my parents understood the power of the mind. So they knew that even though I was in a coma, I was still taking information. So they made the doctors step outside. And once outside, that's where they shared with my parents that, look, he's in a coma. Even if he comes out of his coma, he's probably not going to walk, talk, or eat on his own again. My parents just took this information, they thanked the doctors, and then because none of this influenced me, I didn't even subconsciously, I was in a coma, I was still taking information. None of this got through to my mind. So it allowed me to just treat every day, once I was aware of my surroundings and really knew what was going on, to get up and get better every day. So I was in a coma for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month because, as I said, it was a partially induced coma coming off that medication. Then a month later, I remember that to sit up in bed, the very first thing I could do was sit up in bed for minutes at a time. And then I was sweating profusely like I had just run a marathon. So it was definitely a long road for me. It wasn't just like I woke up from the coma and I was myself. I had to learn, I had to regain my strength. I lost a lot of weight, and then I had to learn everything all over again. I can remember, so this is where it comes in that a month after my accident, I unknowingly utilize a system to not only make a full recovery, but run out of the hospital. And that's what I teach to this day. That's the STEP system. STEPS is an acronym. It stands for support, trust, energy, and persistence. So I'll go through that at a very high level. Support, you got to make sure that you have the support of your family and friends. This is going to have you really falling back on relationships that you built prior to your setback. T is trust. Trust that once you take your first step, the next step is always going to be available to you. Trust it. And also trust that calling that you have inside of yourself. So right around this time, a month after my accident, call it that first week in March 5th. I overheard my parents, my support team, talking to the doctors and that, all right, what are we going to do to make sure that Nick makes a full recovery? So everyone was working towards that. However, I heard in the back of my mind, I still couldn't talk, but I heard in the back of my mind, no, you're going to run out. So then running out of the hospital became our common goal. That's part of trust. And then E is energy. Maintaining your body's energy allows the body's natural ability to be able to heal itself. And if you're not taking care of you, health, diet, exercise, getting natural treatments yourself to keep your energy high, like I still do, every 2 to 3 weeks, I get body treatments. I get energy treatments. I like to call them, to help keep my energy high, so I'm able to impact and affect the most amount of individuals possible. Finally, P is persistence. Persistence. Once you've taken your first step, keep getting up every day and taking your next step, no matter how small. And by continuing to move forward every day, you are building an unstoppable momentum. So then that was a framework that I unknowingly used to run out of the hospital. And then I like to mention this story because early on in my recovery, I was still in a wheelchair. I would get up in the morning and I would need a physical therapist to teach me how to shower again. I literally had to learn everything. So they had to teach me as basic as the water comes before the soap. kind of thing. If you can picture, I know it's not too glamorous to mention that I had to learn how to
Yeah.
shower again, but that's how I would start my day. And then I had physical, occupational, and speech therapy. After which we broke for lunch. And I can remember on this day, early on in my recovery, that I was in a wheelchair in my room and I was looking over my situation and I just couldn't figure it out. I remember turning to my mom and asking, "Am I ever going to be able to walk again?" And she didn't hesitate. She said, "Of course you are. That's what we're doing here. So you can get everything back and we can go home." And I mention this because people hear my story and they're like, "Oh, you got in an accident when you were younger and you ran out of the hospital. Good for you. That you can do it, but I can't." And I mentioned this one incident because I'm human just like everyone else. I had doubts. So because I had that support system around me, that was able to keep me moving forward and taking my next step. And then after running out of the hospital, it wasn't like my work was done. I had to continue to go to outpatient therapy for another 6 months, physical, occupational, and speech therapy, along with being tutored all summer long, 5 days a week, in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. And really looking back on it, George, it's a little surreal that only 18 months later, you can relate to this, I'm sure, that when you're younger, time is compressed. So, like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months seems like a lifetime.
Yeah.
In reality, it's not a lot of time at all. So, only 18 months after running out of the hospital, I got my start in real estate, and that was door knocking on pre-foreclosure doors. So homeowners that had missed several payments on their home and the bank still hadn't foreclosed. So I would go in, knock on the door. They gave me a script and a leave behind, and I would set up meetings for the investor to meet with them the following week about potentially buying their home. And that was really that was really my start in real estate and what I did throughout the rest of high school. I got out of high school, graduated, got my real estate license, and then ironically let it go into January of 2016. And that led me doing what I'm doing to this day, which is I started out 2015 helping my dad with the marketing of the properties that he was getting creatively. So without using his any of his money or signing personally on loans. So I was helping with the marketing, then that transformed into helping all the buyers that were responding to the marketing. And now and then it was the whole time when they're in the rental home buyers in the property, coaching them and helping them so that when they get to the end of their agreement, they're able to go forward and get their own loan. Now I still do that to this day in our family company, where we buy and sell homes here locally, and I also do it with our associates all over the country to do the same thing that we've done in our business. So with
I'd like
that,
to ask you a
I'll
question
take a
about that.
step
So when
down.
you're out there and you knock on a door, you know somebody's missed payments, they're in a very difficult situation. You have the opportunity to sort of coach them through the whole thing. You can save their credit, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have any anecdotes that you can share with us about what it's like to actually go out and change a life like that?
Oh gosh, yeah, that was certainly an interesting time. That was pre-crash, the 2008 market crash. So we were buying and selling homes. I was still in high school. I was only 16 years old. So it was right when I got my license. I came to my dad and I was like, "Hey, how do I help? How do I start helping you?" So he mentioned this idea about being a bird dog basically and going and knocking on these doors and setting up meetings for the investor. So gave me a script, told me where to find the properties, and I would do like up to over 50 doors in a day a lot of times. And door knocking is probably the best training, if you call it that, for how to deal with people and how to help people out of unfortunate situations. Listen, these people they were not in a good situation. So this was 2005, 2006, 2007. So a lot of these people were people that got loans when they probably shouldn't have got loans. So a lot of distressed people. And being there, when I first started doing it, I get a lot of doors slammed in my face because I didn't have any approach. I just went up, ran up to the door and said, I want to help them out of their unfortunate situation. However, shortly after that, my cousin and I, Mike, we flew out to California and shadowed the #1 guy in the country that was having success with these notice of default doors. Once I saw his approach and how much it differed from mine, basically, doing a light jingle on the door, taking a few steps back, like, hey, I don't know if you can help me. I'm working off this list. Once they saw the name on the list, they would light up, tell him what they were doing or weren't doing to change the situation. So it was really, and we owned several pieces of property in the cities that I used to do this with for years after that. And to help people out of that unfortunate situation that they were in it definitely means something to me. It's powerful.
Yeah, that's huge. And then obviously, I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to this audience, but when you're doing something new, you're struggling, that ability to go out and reach out, go find an expert, go out and shadow. I mean, that's huge. That obviously put you like months and years ahead of where you could have been if you just go out there and just work harder, right? That's your common advice that you get, right? Just keep trying.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I've actually all throughout my life, it was a mentor that pointed this out to me and pulled out of me the step system. All throughout my life, I've used that's how I approach everything. Like a new businessman, like entering into a new business, doing, if I have to overcome any kind of challenge, that's how I do it. I want to make sure I have the support. And as long as I have the support and the people behind me to help me, whether it's lining up coaches, mentors, experts in the field, that whatever I'm dealing with, then I know as long as I lined up those experts, I can trust that once I take my first step, and taking your first step it's the hardest thing for a lot of people. As you probably know, a lot of people get stuck in analysis paralysis and they just don't know what to do, so they freeze. But just take that step, take that first step, most importantly, because once you take that first step, your next step is always going to be available for you. And energy. Now, as long as you have lined up your support, you're trusting, you got to make sure you're taking care of yourself and you're keeping your energy high, because without your energy high, how can you expect to be at your best and affect and help support other people? And then finally, as long as you're doing STE, persistence, you have to just keep getting up every day and taking the next step, no matter how small.
So I noticed that behind you, you've got your bulletin board, common goal. Can you walk us through what you got there?
Sure. So common goal is the step system. That's what it is. And that's the system that I teach. I do motivational speaking. I do a lot of speaking for instance, organizations like brain injury associations, because I'm reaching out to them and saying, hey, I had a brain injury. So I think I'd be a good fit to speak at your annual conference. So earlier this year, just to give you an example, I spoke at the Brain Injury Association of Maryland, and at their annual conference back in March, and I was able to give a keynote address of 60 minutes, and for me, it was so much fun because I was able to spend time and actually teach the step system, which we've gone over. And I know we've gone over and touched on only like a 10,000 foot view, but there's so much more to the step system. So part of what I'm doing almost on a day-to-day basis is helping people with implementing the step system.
Glad we had a chance to talk about that because I know you've got a free giveaway, and I want to make sure people have an opportunity to go to. I think is this at wrong page of my notes, but it's at Common Goal. First of all, how do we get out there, and then what can you get?
Sure. So if they go to, it's just my name, the Common Goals website, it's nickprefontaine.com/step. And there they can download Step, the ebook, and they're going to learn all about support, trust, energy, and persistence. And that'll help them to take their first step today. And then if anything I mentioned about real estate interests you, because I know you've had my dad on this, and he was talking real estate and his journey and everything. But if anything about what I said resonated with you on the real estate, how we buy and sell properties creatively without using our cash or credit, head on over to another website is smartrealestatecoach.com. And if they scroll down, George, they can get registered for the free master's class that's going to teach them all about how we buy and sell on terms, and also our trademark 3 payday system. They're going to learn about that as well.
And of course, a lot of our audience is in real estate, and I think that's definitely huge. Definitely want to talk a little bit about real estate. I mean, you mentioned how you were able to use this, you use the system, you're able to grow through it. You didn't need anybody to sign on your loans because, again, you're buying everything on terms. I think that's huge. Another thing that happened around that time is that some people in real estate got hit pretty hard, and I think this system of buying without having to put your own money down, it's a pretty amazing thing. And I've actually come out to experience your community. I want to, first of all, thank you for that opportunity. This is a really amazing community, great coaching program. And I can see a lot of people out there going out and buying real estate in a way that isn't necessarily going to put them in trouble next time things get rough. I mean, I guess we're kind of already in that right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because back in I'll just lay this out for you. This falls perfectly with the timeline that we were talking about. So I mentioned that I was doing this door knocking 2005, 2006, 2007. This is all before the crash. So prior to the market crash in '08, my dad was signing personally on every property and all the loans, which I'm sure he went into detail. He wouldn't be able to talk about his journey without mentioning that. But so he was signing personally on all his loans and getting big investor down payments and big investor money to do everything that he was doing. Then the crash happened in 2008, and buying and selling on terms evolved at the end of 2013. He started getting his head above water, and he was like, I should take another stab at this real estate thing. And then a couple years later, joined him full time with marketing all the properties and then working with all the buyers that was coming in from my marketing. And it's just really interesting to mention, just because I remember a few years ago, probably 4 years ago, it was pre-pandemic. We were on our way to an appointment. And this beautiful house on in Plymouth, which we've actually already sold. We've exited out. We held it for a while and then we sold it, and we did very well on it. I was with my dad, and had the radio on, and I was listening to the radio, and someone came on. They said, "No money down. You can buy without any credit verification." And I looked at him and I was like, oh my God, it's happening again. This is the same thing that was going on in that time frame, '05, '06, '07. So that's my reference point. 2008 and the crash. So now is not even a big deal. I don't even think it's a big deal. And
Fair enough. People who have been through that have really seen a full cycle.
Yeah, and
Pandemic, there's
because
many cycles here.
he had to re-engineer it. Sorry, but my point of saying this was he had to re-engineer his business because his credit was trashed. He wasn't able
Right.
to use it anymore to buy. He didn't have any investor down payment, so the only way he could buy was creatively without signing personally or using big down payment money. So to see it, we've been growing steadily, but to see everything that's happened with the market changing and people look back and say, "Oh my God, this is so great! You can buy without using your credit or big investor down payment." It came out of necessity. So it's really been in the works, I want to say, for 10 years now.
Yeah, and that's very huge because I think a lot of people tend to simply accept by default that the only thing to do is, hey, you get in a single family, you get so many units, then you go into commercial real estate. And just like you said, you bring in the investors, sign on the loans, all that. That's not really the only game in town. And I love the story of that. And again, we're going to try and keep this as different as the interview with your father as possible, because I hope listeners out there that you're listening to every one of our episodes. But yeah, go back and check that out. Great episode. Chris Prefontaine, all about buying on your terms. Well, hey, that sounds like a book title. So maybe it'd be a good time to merge into. Now, you are a 3 times best-selling author. So one of those books I remember is The New Rules of Real Estate. You've been co-author on, I think, 3 books, correct?
Yes. Yep. That's right. And we have a giveaway for your listeners today. They can get The New Rules of Real Estate Investing, which, as you mentioned, I'm a co-author along with my dad and my brother-in-law Zach on that one. And that's 24 leading experts. Look, we might be biased, but it doesn't mean we're wrong that we think our niche and our way to do things is the best way. Buying and selling creatively on terms doesn't mean we're wrong, but it's kind of we're biased. This is The New Rules of Real Estate Investing is 24 leading experts. It's like different niches within real estate. So there's not just one niche in real estate. So they're going to learn all about those different niches and be able to decide what's best for them and their family. So if they go to wickedsmartbooks.com/Gordon3, they can get a free copy of that. Again, wickedsmartbooks.com/Gordon3. They can get a free copy. And when I say free, it's 100% free. Not after you opt in, we're going to hit you up for shipping and handling. Like, we'll cover everything and get that out to you.
All right. I love that. So yeah, so great stuff. Again, yeah, I mean, we can talk all day long about buying on terms because it's fascinating stuff. But how about this? One more mindset question before we move into the rapid fire round. When were you happiest in life?
Right now.
I love it. Perfect. And I think with that, that's a perfect segue into our rapid fire round. Nick, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. So if you could be known for only one thing, what would it be?
Helping individuals, lead individuals through a trauma or life challenge to the other side. And that's where the limitless potential lies. And that's what I'm doing right now with Common Goal. That's why there's no voice in the back of my head, because I'm doing what I was meant to do.
What's the greatest lesson in leadership you've learned?
You can't lead others if you're not leading yourself. And leading yourself, first and foremost, is what you should be focused on. Just focus on taking that first step. And once you take your first step, your next step's always going to be possible.
Personal characteristic has been most pivotal to your success?
So I'm never going to stop. That's like I think the never give up is that's overused, I think. And that's why I didn't say that. Just consistency. Just keep getting up every day and doing something every day.
I love it. With that, let's put some randomness in the mix. Just let me know when to stop cutting the deck. We're going to have a completely random question queued up.
Stop.
All right. If you had only 5 more years to live, would you change anything about your life?
No, and I already touched on it. You said when is the happiest time of my life? Right now. Um, because I'm doing exactly so. I've always throughout my life, I know this is rapid fire, so I'm being a little
No, it's all
long-winded here.
good.
So throughout my life since my accident, no matter how successful I'm being with door knocking, with as a realtor helping buyers and sellers, or working as an investor when I let my real estate license go, working hand in hand with my dad, helping buyers that to get into a home that weren't able to otherwise. I've always had this voice in the back of my head that's always been saying, yeah, that's fine, but what you have to be doing is speaking, telling your story from stage and helping individuals through trauma or a life challenge get through to the other side, and that's where they can thrive with the rest of their life. I've always had that voice in the back of my head since I reached out to my mentor. It's coming up on 3 years ago now. She was the one who helped me develop the step system, launch Common Goal, and really get a platform, get a foundation of which to approach these brain injury associations and do all the speaking that I'm doing to this day to different organizations. So since that time, there has been no voice.
So it's the only way to live. Wouldn't change a thing. And I think that's really beautiful. Now, do you have a tip or trick for our listeners that they can implement in their business today?
Yeah, and I'll keep it broad here. So the what they can do today on their business doesn't matter what business they're operating from, is just if they're exploring a new program or a new strategy or something, just start. Do something. Take that first step, because once you take your first step, your next step's always going to be available for you. You got to trust that.
Can you name a book that's helped to forge you as a leader and as an entrepreneur, and tell us why?
Frequency by Penny Peirce. And that started me on, it's about your personal vibration. And I'll repeat it. Frequency by Penny Peirce. It is about almost exclusively energy. And it really forced me to do some inner work, go inside and start figuring out, all right, what's going on with my voice and everything. And then it's helped me to keep evolving just constantly. Every day I still get up and I'm reading and writing like 30 or 45 minutes after I have breakfast and everything. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I'm still stretching. And that book was one that started me on my journey of launching Common Goal and helping individuals through their trauma.
All right. Can you send us out with a quote to help forge our listeners as leaders and entrepreneurs?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I don't have any. Hold on. Let me turn around. Do I have any? I'm really at a loss. I don't have any, but if there's one thing to leave your listeners with, is that one of the things that's really helped me to get to where I am today is something called Ho'oponopono. I first learned about that through a book. Dr. 𝐒𝐦𝐿𝐿 and Joe Vitale wrote it a little while ago. It's called Zero Limits. So that tells a story about what Ho'oponopono is. And really, if anyone's interested, wanted me to leave you with something, I'll leave you with that, because all of my board is clearing tools from Ho'oponopono.
Right. Well, perfect way to end it. Just want to thank you for taking your time to share your knowledge and experience with our audience, Nick. Oh, but before we go for real, let's make sure we know how does our audience get in touch with Nick Prefontaine?
They can find me at nickprefontaine.com/step. And as I said, that's going to allow them to get the free ebook Step. Going to teach them all about support, trust, energy, and persistence. And you can also submit a message, and that's where you'll be able to find me, I would say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.